In the midst of life's tumultuous storm, we seek anchorage in Stoic philosophy. This ancient wisdom, rooted in the ability to endure the storms of existence, serves as a beacon for those seeking inner strength and self-mastery. In a world that often challenges us, we learn from the Stoics to shape our mindset, resist the tyranny of emotions, and cultivate an indomitable soul. Lesson 1. Embracing the inevitable. There is no harm in hoping for the inevitable. Seneca. In a world where the tides of uncertainty incessantly stir our lives, the first Stoic lesson whispers a teaching that resonates through the centuries. Embrace the inevitable. In this journey, we understand that resisting the currents of inevitability is like fighting against the wind. It is a battle destined for exhaustion. The Stoics, through the words of Seneca, teach us to accept the flow of life with a serenity that transcends adversities. Life is like a rushing river, and trying to divert its course is a fruitless endeavor. Instead, we become steadfast rocks, shaped by the relentless erosion of time. Stoic wisdom encourages us to understand that storms will come, waves will tumult, but instead of fighting against these forces, we choose to embrace them. Accepting the inevitable is not a sign of weakness, but rather a higher strength, a force that adapts, finding calm in the eye of the storm. The Stoic comprehends that resistance to inevitability is a futile and exhausting struggle. When we hurl ourselves against the rocks of unyielding reality, we only hurt ourselves. Embracing the inevitable is not passive resignation, but an active and conscious acceptance of the natural order of things. By adopting this Stoic lesson, we become not only skilled navigators in the sea of life, but also architects of our own fortress. Acceptance of the inevitable is the first solid and unbreakable stone upon which we build our inner stronghold. And as we become masters of our own minds, we find a peace that endures even in the face of the fiercest storms. In this journey, we learn that we are not passive victims of life, but active participants in a grand spectacle. Embracing the inevitable does not make us fragile, but infuses us with a silent strength, a strength that manifests in the courageous acceptance of what is, allowing us to transcend the tumultuous waves of existence. Lesson 2. The power of self-discipline. Self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. Epictetus. In a universe of constant change, where the currents of uncertainty try to pull us away from our course, the second Stoic lesson emerges as a beacon in the darkness: the power of self-discipline. In the words of Epictetus, self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. Here, we are challenged to enter the internal arena, where the true battle unfolds. The mind, that vast and unexplored landscape, is the terrain where self-discipline roots itself. Stoics understand that before shaping the world around us, we must first tame the inner beast, our own thoughts. In this battlefield, we are not mere spectators, but generals of our own mental legions. Self-discipline, like the sharp blade of a Stoic philosopher, cuts through distractions and fleeting desires. It is the careful unfolding of the mental map, outlining the path that leads to true inner strength. Those who practice self-discipline are like skilled navigators, guiding the vessel of the mind through the storms of impulsiveness. However, it's not just about controlling momentary impulses. It's about sculpting a resilient mindset. Self-discipline transforms each thought into a cornerstone of the inner fortress, constructing a solid structure that withstands the unpredictable winds of life. A disciplined mind is not a prison, but a garden where virtues flourish. Stoics, by cultivating mastery over their own thoughts, blaze trails that lead to courage, wisdom, and justice. Every conscious choice is a brick added to the construction of character. By absorbing this Stoic lesson, we become not only passive observers of our own existence, but active architects of a mind that rises like an unshakable fortress. Self-discipline is the flame that burns in the darkness, illuminating the path to true freedom, the freedom that arises from mastery over ourselves. In this inner realm, we become masters of our own souls, forging a resilience that transcends external circumstances and becomes the essence of our unbreakable strength. Lesson 3. The art of detachment. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our interpretations of them. Epictetus. In a world of constant change, where joys and sorrows dance like ephemeral shadows, the third Stoic lesson unfolds as a rare gem: the art of detachment. Epictetus, with his timeless wisdom, guides us through layers of understanding, revealing that it's not things themselves that disturb our souls, but rather how we interpret them. Stoic detachment is not a cold indifference, but a wisdom that frees us from the emotional chains threatening to drag us into the abyss of suffering. By understanding that interpretations shape our reality, we discover a silent power, the power to choose our perspectives. Every situation, whether a triumphant victory or a painful defeat, is shaped by the lens through which we see it. Stoics teach us to polish that lens, to adjust our focus to see the underlying truth, that the nature of things is ephemeral, that emotions, if unchecked, are like storms that obscure our vision. The art of detachment is like a graceful dance, where we move through the spectacle of life without getting ensnared by the traps of unchecked desire. It's not a renunciation of the world, but a conscious acceptance that things come and go, and our true stability lies in inner peace, not external circumstances. By embracing this lesson, we become like eagles soaring in the skies, observing the world below without getting caught up in trivial details. Detachment is not losing passion for life. Rather, it's cultivating a passion that transcends fleeting superficialities. Our hearts become an anchor, anchored to the rock of serenity, resistant to tumultuous tides. Detachment doesn't make us cold. Instead, it gives us the freedom to love without toxic attachments. It's a surrender to the intrinsic nature of existence, an acceptance that frees us from emotional shackles and allows us to navigate the unpredictable challenges of life with grace. Thus, in the art of detachment, we discover that true freedom is found in acceptance, and genuine joy is cultivated in the conscious choice of how we interpret the plot of our lives. In this realm of detachment, we are the masters of our narrative, weaving the threads of existence with a wisdom that transcends ephemeral trivialities and finds a home in the eternity of Stoic lessons. Lesson 4. Transforming suffering into opportunity. It is easier to deal with a sick child than with a distressed adult. Seneca. In the vastness of existence, where the shadows of suffering stretch as a constant, the fourth Stoic lesson emerges as a breath of fresh air, transforming suffering into opportunity. Seneca, with his sagacity, reminds us that facing pain is easier than dealing with unaddressed distress. Stoics invite us to view suffering not as an inevitable scourge, but as an intrepid teacher, ready to guide us through the corridors of our own humanity. Instead of fleeing from pain, we embrace its lessons, turning scars into badges of honor and tears into witnesses of unbreakable resilience. Amidst the heat of adversity, we discover that suffering is not a curse, but a gateway to growth. Each trial is an opportunity to test the strength of our soul, to forge the resolution that will allow us to rise with dignity in the face of life's storms. Stoicism teaches us not to be passive victims of pain, but active protagonists of our own narrative. Instead of letting anguish consume us, we view suffering as a challenge to overcome. Each tear, a tribute to our courage; each scar, a testament to our capacity for healing. In this journey of transformation, we understand that suffering does not define our existence, but shapes our essence. Adversities are not obstacles, but opportunities to become stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. We are like the phoenix that rises from the ashes, renewed by the purifying fire of experience. By internalizing this Stoic lesson, we not only accept suffering as inevitable, but embrace it as an intrinsic part of the human journey. In the forge of tribulations, we are not broken, but transformed into art, sculpted by the skillful hand of adversity. Thus, by facing suffering head-on, we become alchemists of the soul, transmuting pains into wisdom, tears into compassion, and wounds into marks of immortal resilience. Each scar tells the story of a victory over anguish, and each challenge is an opportunity to dance on the edges of our own humanity, emerging stronger and wiser than before. Lesson 5. Virtue as a guide. Virtue is sufficient for happiness. Seneca. In a world shrouded in the transience of material wealth and the cacophony of fleeting desires, the fifth Stoic lesson reveals itself as a serene constant: virtue as a guide. Seneca, with his eloquence, reminds us that true happiness resides in the nobility of the soul, in the relentless pursuit of courage, wisdom, and justice. Virtue, in Stoic philosophy, is not just a distant ideal, but the inner compass that guides our choices and actions. By pursuing virtue, we transcend the superficial pursuit of immediate pleasure and accumulation of material goods. We are urged to find wealth in integrity, contentment in righteousness, and power in authenticity. Each act of courage, every wise decision, and every gesture of justice is like a precious gem added to the necklace of virtue. Stoics understand that true greatness does not reside in external things, but in the purity of character, in the inner strength that faces storms with unwavering dignity. Virtue, as a guide, is not an unattainable armor, but a practical path that transforms our daily lives. By acting in alignment with elevated principles, we become architects of an inner fortress that withstands adversities and remains unshaken in the face of trials. In a world that often measures success by the accumulation of material wealth, Stoicism invites us to redefine the meaning of true prosperity. Virtue, as the wealth of the soul, is sufficient to elevate us to a state of contentment that transcends external circumstances. By incorporating this lesson, we become not only seekers of fleeting pleasure, but philosophers of our own conduct. Virtue, as a guide, leads us through the complexities of life, making us leaders of ourselves, exemplifying that true nobility is not achieved by what we possess, but by who we are. Thus, on the path of virtue, we rise as guardians of the inner flame, illuminating not only our own path, but also radiating a light that inspires others to tread the same path of true greatness. Each step taken in the pursuit of virtue is a silent testimony to our determination to transcend superficialities and embrace the eternal core of Stoic philosophy. Lesson 6. The timelessness of existence. We have no control over time, but we can shape eternity. Marcus Aurelius. In the ephemerality of time, where seasons change and tides flow, the sixth Stoic lesson emerges as a whisper from the universe: the timelessness of existence. Marcus Aurelius, with his imperial wisdom, reminds us that although time slips through our hands like grains of sand, we have the power to shape something that transcends ephemerality: eternity. Stoics understand that each moment is a piece of a larger puzzle, a tapestry that extends beyond the bounds of time. Instead of getting lost in the mirages of the past or uncertainties of the future, they seek to live meaningfully in the present, forging eternity through their actions. In this lesson, we are invited to transcend the linear notion of time and see our existence as a timeless symphony. Every act, no matter how small, reverberates through the ages, shaping the eternal narrative of humanity. We are co-authors of a story that extends beyond the ephemeral, contributing to the construction of a legacy that transcends temporal limitations. By embracing the timelessness of existence, we become architects of a future that echoes through the centuries. It is not about the pursuit of physical immortality, but leaving an indelible mark on the fabric of the universe through actions that transcend the barriers of time. Stoics invite us to see each choice as a sculpture we carve into the rock of eternity, each thought as a star that shines in the firmament of existence. Understanding that we cannot control time, but can influence the impact of our actions through it, we become fearless navigators in a temporal ocean. Thus, in the pursuit of timelessness, we live with heightened awareness, choosing to contribute to something greater than ourselves. Every act of kindness, every word of wisdom, becomes a drop in the stream of eternity, a valuable contribution to the human legacy. By adopting this lesson, we are inspired to live with a purpose that transcends the limitations of time, shaping eternity with the chisel of our actions. We are not prisoners of the clock, but creators of a destiny that resonates beyond the hands, a timeless melody that continues to echo even when the notes of the present dissolve into the ethereal silence of time. Lesson 7. Union with Nature. The universe is change, life is opinion. Marcus Aurelius. In the vastness of the constantly metamorphosing cosmos, the seventh Stoic lesson emerges as a breath from the universe, union with nature. Marcus Aurelius, with his imperial insight, reminds us that in a perpetually flowing universe, life is a personal interpretation of the unfolding events around us. Stoics, seekers of true wisdom, invite us to transcend the illusion of stability and embrace the inescapable reality of change. Accepting that the universe is a river in constant flow allows us to align our minds with the current of existence, instead of resisting the inevitability of tumultuous waters. Union with nature is not just a passive observation of the world around us, but an active fusion with the rhythms of life. We are invited to dance in harmony with the seasons, to embrace the cycles of birth and death, to accept that each moment is a fleeting fragment in the eternal symphony. This lesson encourages us to recognize that changes are the fabric of existence, and it is through the serene acceptance of this truth that we find inner peace. Adversities are not deviations from the path, but an integral part of the journey. We are like leaves floating in the current of the river of life, serene navigators trusting the waters of change. By adopting union with nature, we cease to be distant spectators and become active participants in the cosmic dance. Life is a blank canvas, and our opinions shape the brushstrokes that create our reality. We choose to see chaos as an opportunity for creation, change as a constant source of renewal. In this understanding, we become alchemists of our own existence, transforming challenges into opportunities, tears into lessons, and joys into ephemeral celebrations. Union with nature is not a surrender to passivity, but an active and conscious acceptance that we are an integral part of the vast cosmic spectacle. Thus, by embracing this lesson, we not only find balance in constant changes, but also discover a profound connection with the universal fabric of existence. Our journey is not a solitary act, but a collective dance with the stars, a magnificent synchrony that echoes through the centuries. In union with nature, we are not just witnesses of life, but active participants in the grand cosmic symphony. Walking the path of Stoicism, we don't just become resistant to the storm, we become the storm itself. Our inner fortress is forged in the flames of adversities. Our soul is sculpted by the firm hand of self-discipline. In every breath, in every choice, we shape our destiny, rising as titans before the vastness of the cosmos. May each step be an eternal echo of Stoic philosophy, a timeless melody resonating in the souls of those seeking true greatness. Dear seekers of greatness, join our Stoic community, where resilient souls come together to grow as one. Amidst timeless lessons, we shape inner fortresses, find strength in adversities, wisdom in reflections, and virtue in actions. In this sanctuary of mutual growth, each member is an architect of their own evolution. We invite you to be part of this collective journey of self-mastery, where unity strengthens and shared wisdom illuminates the path.